Are you having trouble staying in character? Then this is the video to watch.
Yeah. I'm inspired. I'm inspired.
Hey there guys, how's it going? My name is Sumet Chatterjee from the Flow Zone Academy, and I'm a flow state coach, which means that I help you feel better and perform better. Today I want to speak from the perspective of an actor in terms of how to stay in character. Is this video just meant to help actors? No. You see, I am the creator of a method. It's called the theatroplasticity method. Okay? Basically, it's using dramatic strategies for behavior change. It's how you can actually create the character, step into that character, and really start to embody and live that character, your ideal self, your best self. Okay? There is an event that's coming up end of next month. It's going to be a 3-day event. Okay, if you get the early bird, it's going to be $199. If you are interested in that, definitely get on that. AZD, one of my mentors, is going to be speaking there as well as Ivan Alejandro Acosta. And together, we are going to plan the event out in 3 ways, right? The first day is going to be all about rewiring the past and deal with the roadblocks. And the second day is all about the present moment, like what's working for you, what's not, and what is the reality that you currently have. And then the third day is going to be all about creating that character, being in that future version of you, and really starting to integrate everything together. So, having said that, I want to start off this video by really stating the importance of congruence and staying in character, okay? I think it's very, very important as an actor, but even in your own life, to stay in character. Because if you're being incongruent, people aren't going to trust you. People aren't going to see you as reliable. They're not going to be able to put you in a box, which is actually problematic because yes, mystery is great and it builds a lot of attraction, but at the same time, if you're not playing towards your specific archetype, there's not going to be that feeling of safety that they know who you are exactly, so they can actually let go and be more of themselves, right, in that moment when you are in character. So it's really, really important as a life skill. Now, I've done a bit of acting in my past. You know, in my college times, I thought I was going to become an actor when I first went to college. But then I started to realize that, I don't like this thing about learning lines and just, I've acted, I've been an extra in a movie and stuff like that. All of that wasn't as fulfilling to me as just me being my most authentic, pure, expressive, confident, charismatic, epic self, right? Like the best version of me has access to all of these good qualities, but if I'm not being that person right now, there's going to be a disconnect, and it's going to cause me to self-sabotage and a lot of different things that come up, right? So what's one way you can stay in character? One, really use imagery, okay? Imagery is ultimately very, very powerful. So let's say that you are staying in the character of the moment and being really deep with somebody, and you're serious together, but you feel like laughing. Maybe you're still a little bit immature, that's okay, right? Laughter is just a nervous release of energy, just a nervous release of chemicals in the brain, and it's a very social thing to be able to laugh. It's very normal, right? So just be easier on yourself if you do decide to laugh at certain moments. It's completely fine. At the same time, you can actually optimize using a specific imagery to make you stay in that character, right? So for example, if you want to be serious with somebody, you think of a very serious imagery in your mind as you're communicating with them. And in that way, you're staying in character, right? You can think of your pet, your close people around you, like your relatives, your parents, right? Of course, you don't want to go extreme. You don't want to start crying unless that is your intention. You want to start crying, then by all means go for it. Like, I'm not here to stop you. But at the same time, I think having the image in the mind as you're communicating really helps you to stay in that pocket, stay in that zone, in that flow state where you are maintaining that character proficiency and congruency, okay? The second thing is, if you are breaking out of character and let's say you're in front of somebody, you're very intimidated, I use this technique. I imagine their entire timeline. So imagine them being a very small baby to the time that they're maybe 80 plus years old, or even in their deathbed, right? I imagine their entire lifespan, and in that way you don't see them as the person they they are in front of you. Maybe they're very attractive, maybe they're very successful, maybe they have, more opportunities than you, whatever it is. Maybe you're jealous of them, whatever it is, right? It can be a number of things where you feel intimidated or you start falling into this comparison trap. What you can do is, again, this is another imagination tool where you actually imagine their entire life timeline. Maybe they were a dorky kid in high school. Maybe their parents yelled at them. Maybe they have past many traumas. You've got to understand that nobody is how they present themselves. Everybody is a conglomerate, this melting pot of all these ideas, concepts, philosophies, different life stories. So you don't really know everything about anyone, basically, right? You don't know everything about anyone. So they know themselves the best. All you can do is make the fastest assumption, or use your heuristics or rule of thumb method, where you're like, okay, they appear to be like this, so I'm going to treat them like that, right? Or they told this to me, and so I'm going to trust the words that they're saying. But that's not always the case. So what I want you to really start to understand is, when you use this timeline approach, it makes it easier for you to communicate with someone, and it keeps you in that authenticity and that open-heartedness, that honesty, essentially, right? The third thing is using actual physical pain to get you back into the flow again, in the present moment again. Because you might be thinking of the past and the future. That's like the anxiety, teleportation, time travel thing that's going on, right? You're going to the past, future. You're not in the present moment. So one way to do this is with actual physical pain. Now, if you're doing this in front of somebody, right, you can always go like this, right? You hide your hand and like pinch your lower back or something where they can't see it. And that physical pain will actually tap you back into the present moment very quickly. And you could even give yourself a pat on the back as a reminder. There's lots of little anchors that you can give yourself to bring yourself back into that conversation, into that moment, to get you back on your flow state and in the zone again with your character congruence, okay? The next thing is actually knowing what your character is, right? A lot of people are flimsy with their identities, especially with a lot of identity politics and things happening nowadays. It's like anybody can identify as anything, right? I can identify as a toothbrush, other kin, like I could say that, hey, I'm identify as a jaguar, right? There's a lot of leeway nowadays in terms of this identification. Obviously, that's not there to offend anybody who's listening. Maybe you identify somebody else, right? However, at the same time, understand that identity is a fluid concept and it changes like molasses over time, right? Like honey. So you've really got to formulate and have an exact picture in your mind of the type of person that you want to be. And once you have that vision in your mind, it starts to create the actual circumstances of how you can get there, right? As I mentioned in one of my past videos, the scene from Karate Kid, right? Mr. Miyagi. And he has this image of the bonsai tree that he has in his mind. This is the original Karate Kid, right? Not the Jaden Smith version. This is the Daniel DeRusso one, right? So he sees, Mr. Miyagi cutting this bonsai tree, and he told him to keep an image of the bonsai tree in his mind, how he wants it to look, and just shed away anything that does not belong, anything that's not there. So for you to actually create and be congruent with your character, you have to trim away the fat, in a sense. You have to trim away the different elements that don't belong. You have to trim away all the little nuances and idiosyncrasies that you have, that you feel like, oh, this is a flaw of mine, or oh yeah, this is not working, or yeah, I don't really get this. The moment you accept those things, you let them go. The moment you feel resistant towards those things, you're going to grasp onto it and attach to it more. So the more we feel ashamed about something, we hide it, we make it a secret, we don't talk about it, right? And it starts to grow. So the more you can actually speak about the different things that are going on in your mind, and this is why, having a coach, a counselor, a therapist, this is all important, because you're actually sharing your true inner feelings with them. And as you're doing that, you're trimming away the excess, right? You're getting rid of the things that are holding you back in order to actually get to where you want to go. So that's a really, really important step if you want to adopt this mentality of like being congruent, being consistent with who you're being. I basically like to imagine that I am the same person wherever I go, okay? Like, I'm the same with a security guard, then with my parents, then with a friend, then with anybody else. Like, I've slowly started to chip away at that feeling of like, no, I don't want to tell them, and I'll say this to my friends, and then, what if I say this and they're going to judge me? I've lost that judgment fatigue a lot over the years by basically trimming off the fat to the character, right? By understanding that who I know I am, who I prefer to be, and just completely creating and out creating my problems and creating over my issues and flaws as well, to be able to actually be in that character. You want to basically be the character that doesn't have to deal with that problem anymore, or at least makes that problem easier, right? So let's say you have a problem with getting to places on time, right? Now you have to start to identify as the type of person who is very detail-oriented, time-oriented, and they're reliable when it comes down to time, right? So that's something to work on with your character traits. Now, you could say that, oh, it's just not in my personality, I'm never going to be able to do that. That's also something to accept if it's really something that you can't change. But I always believe that we as people, we are put here on this earth to actually change and evolve and transform over time. We're not just here to be one specific character and then that's it. We're there to add elements to our character, different attributes, different supplementation, different accessories to make the character more valid and visual and actually accessible, right, in different ways. So you really want to understand, like, who is the character I'm being, and have that clear picture of that version of you, and trim away the versions of you that aren't that already. Last thing I would say is, when you do break out of character, to own up to it and not be afraid of breaking out of character, but just simply stating the fact, hey, you know, you even tell this to people, you communicate the fact that, hey, you know, how I acted then, I was being out of character, that wasn't cool of me, I hope we can start fresh and, you know, make this a blank slate and see where this goes, right? What you're doing there is not really an apology, it's more of a confrontation with your old self or your old identity, or maybe even a past behavioral trait that you're not too fond of or proud of, right? Let's say, for example, just as an example, you had a past of kleptomania, right? You just used to steal things and like going to markets and just take things from people's homes and things like that. And you're trying to rewire and change that behavior trait. Now, if you find yourself doing that again, if you own up to it and you're like, hey, I took this pen from you, it's really out of character, it's a bad habit from my past, I hope you don't think less of me for that, you know, it was just a pattern and I was acting very unconsciously, right? So as you do that, you're actually bringing to your attention the moments that you're doing that, right? This is coming back to that anchor idea of like patting yourself on the back and giving yourself a reinforcement. Because a lot of our decisions and our behavior traits are Pavlovian, right? We've conditioned ourselves or we've unconditioned ourselves. So if you really want to create the character, you're going to have to create the conditions for that character to thrive. Like, you know, a flower needs the soil and to be able to make it grow. Maybe you don't have the external soil, but you got to have the internal soil in order for it to actually take place, right? The seed of creativity has got to help you to grow from that position. Okay? I hope this video helps you out today. Have an incredible day. May the flow be with you and stay legendary. Let's get it today. Boom.